Welcome to today's webinar on efficient alumni survey management. The purpose of today's webinar is to help you build better relationships with your graduates and to help you collect some of the important information you need for maximizing the improvement of your program. We are going to provide this webinar as a recording that will be available to you. The key topics that we're going to cover today will be somewhere between 1 hour to 1.5 hours. And the topics will include designing surveys and how to make them as impactful as possible. How do we create those? Again, thinking about the fact that this is for alumni or graduates, whether they're residents or fellows. How to streamline the survey process in terms of building an efficient survey that connects to everything else that you're doing. Analyzing and utilizing the feedback in terms of how to generate reports and do something meaningful with the reports. And I'll make some recommendations on how to better engage your graduates as well. As I said, the entire webinar should be somewhere between 1 hour, maybe 1.5 hours. But I think that the content should be coverable in about an hour. So some importance of why we want to do surveys. Number one, it's to gain insight into our graduates and what their experiences were. It helps us identify areas for program improvement, to build on the things that we're strong in and to improve the things that we're weak in. It also helps to strengthen our alumni engagement and support in terms of those alumni that are staying in the vicinity of our facility, for them to work as mentors with our trainees. It helps to improve your program quality in overall getting more graduates in the future. It also enhances your networking opportunities with alumni, allowing your alumni to interact with the residents and building a stronger community. And most importantly, as part of your annual program evaluation process, you'll actually have data that can help you make decisions on developing your program and improving your program. When designing our surveys, the key principles that we want to focus on are, number one, clarity, then relevance and engagement. Clarity is to ensure that the questions are clear and concise. Obviously, we don't want to create a survey that has a lot of very vague questions. We want it to be very direct. We also want it to be very relevant. So we want to focus on questions that are important to the alumni and to the program. So those people who've graduated, how do they feel about the training that they had, but in a relevant manner so that the program can improve itself. And we want to make sure that the survey is engaging. So rather than just using a very generic set of answer scales, we want to use a mix of question types where we have multiple choice, we have free form or open-ended questions all built in together. So examples of these types of engaging items would be Likert scales, where we ask for satisfaction with the program. So we'll use a 1 to 5 scale. So here I put a little note for you that subjective scale is okay. A lot of times when we talk about building evaluations, so when we're rating a resident's performance over time, we talk about building it with objective-based answer scales. That would be scales that are based on their performance being from novice to competent to proficient to expert. That's more objective. Subjective would be things like poor, good, satisfactory, excellent. So it's okay to use subjective scales here. Open-ended, we'll ask questions like, what was the most valuable aspect of the program for you? Making it more of a open-ended type of question. And multiple choice would be things like, how frequently do you participate in alumni events, and providing with different options. And you'll see some examples where we're even using multi-select options, where we'll ask questions about how do you most prefer to be engaged in the future? And we give them choices of, for example, email and telephone, and they can select multiple options. So in terms of designing our evaluations, I'm really curious to know what some of your particular challenges are. I want to focus on a quick poll that I put up for you. If you can go ahead and answer those poll questions, I would really appreciate it. It just simply is asking you, what are your biggest challenges in designing surveys? So focusing just on building a survey, we're getting some responses coming in right now, ensuring high response rates. Right. I appreciate that. Analyzing the survey data is some other aspects here. Just a couple more of you, if you could go ahead and give your response. Many of you have already. I appreciate it. Okay, great. I really appreciate that. So for a few of you, a couple of you had concerns about creating engaging questions. Okay, I appreciate that. Just helps me get an understanding of what some of your biggest challenges are. 10% of you responded creating engaging questions, 70% of you responded ensuring high response rates, and 20% of you responded analyzing survey data. So those will be all things that we're focusing on. And certainly how you design your survey, meaning the kinds of questions you put on it and how long you make a survey, will impact getting responses. So we want to make sure we keep that in consideration. So it's very important in terms of your survey management that you streamline the survey process. So survey distribution should be very easy to send out surveys to your alumni. So we have a very straightforward process for doing that. The data is automatically collected and organized for you. And then you can also track those responses and monitor the survey progress. So I'm going to review all of these processes with you in terms of how to distribute, and then look at the data and see who has responded and who has not responded. Now let's focus on creating an effective alumni survey. On the survey itself, we want to make sure we have a welcome message at the top that briefly explains the purpose of the survey and why it's important. Shouldn't be too long, shouldn't be too short. It should be accurate and to the point, and that's an important part of getting engagement from the assessor. There should be a brief statement about confidentiality to assure the respondents that their answers are going to be kept confidential for your program only. You're not going to publish it. You're not going to share it with other organizations. And you should provide some idea to them of how much time it's going to take for them to complete the survey. Is it going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Is it just a 2-minute survey where it has one question on it? So set the expectations, let them know what to expect, and build on that. As part of your questionnaire, you should ask some demographic information. What's their graduation year? So if you're sending out a survey to, let's say, trainees that graduated over the course of 2 or 3 years, so you're not sending it every year, but to just the people who graduated 2 or 3 years earlier, but you're sending it to a large group, you want to include the graduation year. If this is a fellowship, you wouldn't ask the question about specialty, but for the residencies, you may want to ask a question about pursuing specialties so that you can collect some demographics on what specialties your residents aspire towards. You want to ask questions about their current position in terms of are they working as a professor? Are they a physician within a university hospital, within a community-based hospital, and what their particular position is and where their location is in terms of country, state, city. Again, that helps you with your demographics of understanding, hey, a lot of our graduates are maybe foreigners that are coming in and they're going back to their home countries, or are we getting a lot of out-of-state people who are going back to their states, or are these local people who we're accepting and they're still working locally, but maybe we're not engaging them sufficiently to be involved with our program. So location becomes a very important question there. The third section would be about program evaluations. So specifically, what's your overall experience? Questions like, how would you rate your overall experience in the residency program? And I'm giving you ideas here about utilizing a Likert scale from very poor to excellent. Now, mind you, you don't need to worry about writing all this stuff down. Not only is this going to be available for you to rewatch again, but we will also be providing you with a couple of sample alumni surveys for you to review and further customize. So really, this is all about you understanding the overall functionality of what should be included on the survey. You want to ask questions about overall experience, their curriculum, clinical training, research opportunities, and their mentorship and support. So you can see some sample questions I've included in here. And in the sample evaluation, we've also included questions like this. How well did the curriculum prepare you for your current role? How effective was the clinical training in providing you practical experience? How would you rate your research opportunities? And how satisfied were you with the mentorship and support from faculty? So as you can see, you may sometimes get responses to these questions that might be unsatisfactory, but with a good program, that gives you an opportunity to make improvements and address specific areas of weakness in order to improve the overall quality of your program. The fourth section is on skills and competencies. So while the previous section was focusing on the program evaluation, here you're going to focus on skills and competencies, clinical skills, procedural skills, communication skills, and leadership skills. So how well did the program equip you for your clinical skills? How competent do you feel in performing the common procedures in your specialties, in your specialty? How well did the program develop your communication skills? Or how effective was the program in training you to develop leadership and management skills? Again, very important. And so while the first here, we focus on the program itself, then we focus on skills and competencies to learn that from the graduate. And then the next part is on career development. So specifically focusing on how well did the program support your career advancement? Were there opportunities for you to network? So again, if you're asking about networking, you might get negative responses that no, we didn't have an opportunity for networking. That right there is a problem you can solve, because here, these are the alumni that you're trying to engage for better networking opportunity for your current residents. And of course, job placement assistance, whether you've done a good job with that as well. Coming towards the end of a survey, we want to ask about alumni engagement. What's your current involvement? What's your interest in participation? Notice these are yes, no responses. And the last one is what I suggested as a multi-select answer scale would be preferred communication channels. How would you prefer to receive updates and communications from the program? And this will help you. If you see a lot of people are responding social media, for example, you've got to start thinking, well, do we really have a good social media presence? How are we really utilizing that? Should we do a better job in managing our social media for better engagement of the alumni? Then some open-ended questions that would typically go to the very bottom of the assessment have to do with program strengths, areas for improvement, and an opportunity for additional comments. At the very bottom of the evaluation, you should include a thank you message and provide contact information for follow-up questions or additional input. So again, making yourself available and connecting yourself with the resident, the graduate residents or graduate fellows is very, very important. So these 8 sections represent the topics you should include on an alumni survey. We've gone ahead and put both a resident and a fellow version of the alumni survey in your accounts. These are available under the menu option, Evaluations, Edit Evaluations. You will all have an older version that's referred to as version 1. So this is version 2. So if you go to your menu option, Evaluations, and you go to Edit Evaluations, you'll see a list of all the available surveys that are currently in your department. And specifically, you want to look for the ones that I've mentioned here. The Alumni Survey RV2, which is Resident version 2, and FV2, which is Fellow version 2. You'll see in your list, you'll see a version 1. So there's an Alumni Survey Fellow version 1 and Resident version 1. We did not delete those. They're just older versions with slightly different questions. So you still have those available and you can review them. So I want to take a look at the current survey just to kind of go through what the main key points were that I just reviewed with you. At the top, we have a heading, and we can hide these competency headings. So it just looks like this. So click on the option to hide competency heading so it doesn't say description. We can just hide that. And this one, just a general statement that says, we're delighted to invite you to participate in our alumni survey. As a valued graduate of our residency program, your feedback is crucial in helping us enhance the quality of our education and training for future residents. The survey aims to gather your insights and experiences to better understand the impact of our program and identify areas for improvement. There's a confidentiality assurance that your responses are confidential and will not be used for, will only be used for program improvement. Then we have a question here about your graduation year. What's your current position? What's your current location in terms of country, state, and city? Then the questions here, rather than being competency-based questions, have to do with your program as a whole. So what's your overall experience? How would you rate your overall experience in the residency? These have been designed with early warning triggers. So if they choose the option for very poor or poor, it will ask them to provide an explanation. Of course, if they say fair, good, or excellent, nothing, meaning they don't have to write additional comments. How well did the curriculum prepare you for your current role? So again, it's a bit more dynamic and the scales are different here. Not at all prepared. Well, if they select that, it's going to ask them to provide an explanation. How well did the program develop your communication skills? How well did the program equip you with essential clinical skills? How competent do you feel in performing common procedures? How effective was the training in developing your leadership and management skills? How well did the program support your career advancement post-graduation? How, in terms of networking opportunities, how effective were the networking opportunities provided by the program? So you can see on all of these, we've included an early warning for the most critical negative response. And then, are you currently involved in any alumni activities or initiatives? And then interest, would you be interested in participating in future alumni events or mentoring current residents? Then there's 2 free-form questions about program strengths and program areas for improvement. These are mandatory responses, so they cannot submit the evaluation without putting something into these response fields. And then preferred communication channels. How would you prefer to receive updates and communication from the program? And this is a multi-select, so it would allow the evaluator to select more than one response. And there's a question at the bottom that says, please provide your telephone and mailing address for follow-up questions or additional input. Your information will be kept confidential. This is an optional field, so if they choose not to provide that, the system was not going to hold them up. And then thank you for your valuable feedback. It will help us improve our program for future residents. And there's a comment field provided for them at the bottom as well. So these two surveys are both available for you, both for the resident and fellow. All you need to do is to publish them, or if you want to customize them. We're going to review the customization process and how to build evaluations in a little bit. But for right now, this is where I've brought you to, is just to understand what should be included on the survey and how what are the surveys that we currently have available and how do we review it. Now, for the hands-on, I want to focus on how do we design questions, how do we create our survey, how do we distribute our survey, and how do we monitor responses. So there's a very quick guide here for you in terms of designing. We're going to use the managed question database to design our questions. These are all going to be under resident of program. The particular questions that we provided you, we put it under the category quality of training. In terms of actually building a survey, we're going to do design and evaluation custom. These will be designed either as resident of program or fellow of program evaluations. In terms of distribution, we're going to assign these from the menu archived program assignments. This is going to be all part of our hands-on we're going to do in a minute. And in terms of monitoring, there's going to be two places. We're going to generate a completion status report. We can also, in addition, we'll use manage evaluation assignments to check response rates and to see where we stand. So let's take a look at the hands-on process here of how we go through this. Yes, I realize the surveys are already available for you, but I want to walk you through the process of how you actually do this and how do you edit the surveys as you go through the process. So from the menu option evaluations, where in order to write any questions or edit your questions, you're going to go to manage question database. Now for the sake of our review right now, I'm going to use a program that is different than the program we started in. So we'll take a look at urology as an example. So when you're designing questions for alumni, you are still designing the evaluation for that user based on what they were before they left your institution. So if they were a resident before they left and you archive them as a resident, then you're going to design a resident evaluation of the program. If you're doing it for fellows, then it would be fellow of program. So you're not going to look for an option that says alumni. It's either a resident of program or it's going to be a fellow of program evaluation that you're designing. Now, here I have the option to hide unused categories. So it's only showing me things that I'm actually using that have data in it. If I uncheck this option, then I'm going to see a whole smorgasbord of different names. So I want to just focus on the categories that I need right now. Here, quality of training is where we're going to focus on. This is where we've put in our questions. If you hide those unused categories, you can see there are many other categories that you can use. You might want to ask questions about information technology. So you might say, hey, I want to put them under information technology. That's fine. For purposes of what we've designed, we put everything under quality of training. The other thing that we've done is when we added the questions into the database, we put the ID ALUM00 with a number for all of them. So if you notice, they're all sequential. And one important idea about sequential numbering is notice when we went from 009 to 10, it becomes 010. So you have to be careful you don't go from 009 to 0010. So that leading zero, you have to manage that carefully. And the idea here is these are the questions that are currently in the database. Because the evaluations we've provided you are not published yet, notice that you can edit these questions. So if you don't like how it says, how would you rate your overall experience in the residency program, or maybe you don't like the language of residency program, you want to change it to something different, you can go ahead and edit those questions and make the necessary changes to them. Easy and straightforward, make the necessary changes. You can save those changes and voila. So if you want to add new questions, if you notice here that at the very bottom, the alum 020 is the thank you item. Maybe I want to add a question right before it, or maybe I want to add a question further up. I can click on add a question. Notice that the system sequentially puts the next available question ID in there. You would write your question and you would click save question. Now, if you recall, when we were looking at the survey, there was one question about asking them to provide their telephone number and their email or their up-to-date information. And I told you that the response field was optional. Just to share with you, so here, please provide your telephone and mailing address for follow-up questions or additional input. Notice that this one at the end of it says your information will be kept confidential. And if I go in and I actually look at this question, we have added a question comments to it. So this is how I can add a comment field to a question and keep that comment field response optional. So these question comments are always optional. It adds a comment field to that question, and it is completely optional for that user to provide a response. You may decide to add that same comment fields for some of the other questions, but be mindful that in the example I showed you, we included early warning for some of the responses. So they're already going to be prompted to provide more explanation. So be careful about having too many comment fields stacked on top of each other. So unless there's any questions about this process here, then we should move forward. Let's see here. I'm just trying to see if there's any questions. Okay, so just a couple of quick questions I'm going to answer. There was one participant, Susanna, that said she's not able to see the slides. I want to make sure everyone is able to see the slides and the presentation I'm doing on my side. It appears that everything is showing correctly. So if any of you are having difficulty, please let us know. Jennifer asks, can the GME office administer this from their dashboard page? Absolutely, Jennifer. This can be done either from your own dashboard page, or it can be done from the individual programs. So the surveys are available in the GME office as well as in the residency programs. So it doesn't seem like there are any questions about adding the questions into the database. So the next step is to actually design our evaluations. Again, I realize that we've provided you with those forms, but I want to walk you through the design process so that you're familiar with it. We're going to go under the menu option evaluations, and we're going to use design and evaluation custom. We're going to design this as a resident evaluation of the program, or a fellow evaluation of the program, depending on which set of alumni that you're working with. And I'm going to call this alum survey XXX because I already have another one in the system. I'm just using this for demo purposes. Because this is a resident of program survey, automatically the anonymity is set to yes. You must change that to a no. These surveys are not anonymous. They're confidential in the sense that you're not going to share the data with outside sources, but they're not anonymous. You are sending it to specific alumni and you're asking them for direct feedback so that you can engage with them. If you want to make it anonymous, that's certainly a prerogative. And if you feel that that's going to be the best way for you to get better response rate, that's completely up to you, but I recommend it not be anonymous. We will include comments on this evaluation, so we'll say yes there. And then for the option for will the user have the option to send a notice to the director, you're going to say no for that option, and you're going to say no for voluntary. So we don't want people to do this evaluation voluntarily, so we're going to mark it as no. We only want to assign it, and we're not going to include a confidential comment field as well. So everything is no except for the comment field, and that won't be mandatory either. So we click next to go to step 2. Now in step 2, we have our various question categories. We're going to click on our quality of training, and here we get a listing of all of our questions. So these were the questions that I had pointed out to you. So overall experience, how would you rate your overall experience in the residency program? You select that, and then you are prompted to select an answer scale, which came up as a pop-up for me. So it's up to you, again, what you want to select. We've provided a cornucopia of scales for you to choose from. I recommend you take a look at the current scales that we are using on those questions. They were carefully manicured for you. Unlike regular evaluations where we use these proficiency-based skills that are more objective, in this example, we're going to use things that are a bit more subjective, things like unsatisfactory, satisfactory, excellent. So there are different options that we provided you. You want to select the one that best fits your program's individual needs. So you select that because this one has an early warning with it. You want to be careful in where you assign that early warning option. So you would go through and you would do that for each one of the questions that you want to include. Again, you go through, you edit, and one by one, you'll select the particular scale you want on those. Let's talk about some of the other areas where we're going to find our information. So here at the top and the bottom, notice I don't see the heading. The first thing I suggested for you was to include the heading and some demographics. Those questions were put under the section called description. Description always sits at the top, so we use that category. And notice this is also alum, but it's has a D-001, D for description. So because this is a description, and notice I can edit this here as well. Once you select this, you have to say, well, what kind of scale do I want? This is only a description. In this case, instead of using a scale, we're going to select the option for no answer scale. No answer scale, blank. So this just becomes a description. What about for graduation year, current position, current location, and other things? Well, for graduation, we want to select a free-form answer scale. So in scale of 1 to 5, oh, here's all the free forms. This is for data collection. So do I want just a single line, or do I want a big giant text area for them to give me the date of graduation? A little small text area is sufficient. Their current position, same idea. Select the option for free form. A little text area is sufficient. For current address, we also want free form. That's up to you. We use the small text area. If you prefer a line text area, that's completely up to you. So once you've selected these options, I'm not going to select all the items here. I'm only focusing on some of them. But once you've selected those items, here at the very bottom, remember that this question about providing your telephone and mailing address already includes that optional comment field I told you about. So in that case, I also don't want the system to add an answer scale. So I'm going to say no answer scale, because there's the comment box that's optional is the only option I want people to have. And then for the very bottom, for thanking them, Also there, I'm going to select the option for no answer scale. So now that I've selected my questions, I acknowledge that I have not selected all the questions. I'm trying to move things along for you. Now I come to step 3. In step 3, it's going to show me all the items I have selected. I can move things around. So if I prefer items, let's say their current position to be before graduation, I can move that around. I can click on hide competency heading. So when we don't want it to say description and quality of training, then we just hide competency and it doesn't show that anymore. And then we click finish at the bottom and that adds that survey to my database. So that's the ease of you doing any kind of design. And of course, you can go to the menu option, edit evaluations, in order to edit both the forms that we've provided you. So those are available here as version 2. That survey is the one that I just created. This is a quick reminder for you. Things such as this survey that I just created that are not published yet, if I delete that survey that I just created, that will delete the survey from my system. I cannot retrieve a deleted form if the form has no data. So because this has never been published, once I click OK, that survey is now deleted. There is no way for me to get that survey back. I'd have to go and redesign that survey. If I want to now use this alumni survey here, then all I need to do is to click on publish, OK, and that survey is now published for me and I can utilize it. So now we learned how to manage our question database. We learned how to design our evaluation. So the third step is for us to assign the evaluation. We go to the menu option evaluations. On the left-hand side, under assign and manage evaluations, we go to assign evaluations, and we want to schedule our evaluation assignments. Now, all of you are accustomed to manual assignments that you do here. If you look at the very last option here for archive program assignments, that's where we want to go for today. So under menu option evaluations, assign evaluations, schedule evaluation assignments, we're going to go to the archive program assignments. If you're assigning it to graduated residents, then you go resident of program. If it's to graduate fellows, you go to fellow of program. So I'm going to choose resident of program. In step 1, I'll see my alumni survey. Every survey that you assign should always have a start and end date. This should generally reflect the timeline that you're giving people to complete the evaluation. So maybe we're assigning this evaluation for May 1, 2024 to May 31, 2024, for example. I want to select the residents that I want to include in the survey. So I can go ahead and select those particular graduated residents from my list. And I can go to the bottom, I click submit, and that's going to trigger an email notification to them to complete the survey. Now, I want to stop here for a second to talk about the email notification to complete surveys, to remind you of some key elements of data management you need to be aware of. I'm going to go to the menu option users, add edit existing users. And I want to remind you, when you're adding your residents and your fellows into the system, you recall that all the profiles have a main email and they have a permanent email. The main email is that email that the system is going to use all the time. So it might be david@myevaluations.com because that's the official work email. The permanent email should be an email that is not related to work. So when David has graduated from our training program and no longer has access to David@MyEvaluations, maybe he's going to be at davidmelamed@gmail.com. That's David's personal, private, permanent email address. When you populate this permanent email address, there is a significant benefit for you. In the future, when this resident graduates from your program, you're going to go to the menu option users, and you're going to go to archive promote users, and you're going to select those residents that you're archiving. So let's say Don Juan is graduating from our program. So we want to go ahead and archive that user because they are graduating, they are leaving my program. When you archive Don Juan, the system will automatically take their permanent email address and put it in the position of their main email. So when you are assigning alumni survey, the system will send those email notifications to that permanent email address. So one common mistake I see a lot of administrators make is they use the work email in both the main email address field and the permanent email address field. And you shouldn't do that. Instead, you should use their personal email as their permanent email field. So that becomes very important in terms of communication and in terms of getting engagement and involvement, so that when you're assigning these evaluations, they're going appropriately. Now, that all of your alumni, all of your trainees, when they graduate, when they log into MyEvaluations, this is what they'll see. So this is what a typical resident sees when they log into MyEvaluations, a typical graduated resident. They have access to their portfolio, so they can always review their portfolio. They have access to reports, so they can always log into the system. They can look at their evaluations, their procedures, all of their old information they always have access to, and they can look at that at any time. But the only thing that they can do is they can complete evaluations. And you can see here that there's one evaluation to complete. And this allows them to log in and complete that particular evaluation. It says 8 days remaining. And you can see the format of this particular evaluation. There's the heading, your graduation year, we can say was 2020. Current position is your current location, and it's up to me how much information I want to provide. Quality of training. If I were to say poor, it prompts me to provide an explanation. So I can provide all my appropriate responses in here. Program strengths, I can write comments in here, areas for improvement. And then here on the multi-select, it says hold down the control key or the command keys on the Macintosh, and it allows them to select more than one option in their selection criteria. And then please provide your telephone and mailing address. This is that optional field that I told you about. There's a thank you, and then additional comments, any additional comments or suggestions is where they would put in here. So this is a very easy, straightforward way for them to complete those evaluations. Any questions about that process? Just looking to see if you guys have any. Nope, no questions so far. Okay, we'll continue then. So we learned how to manage our questions. We learned how to design a survey. We learned how to assign the survey. Now we want to talk about actually generating reports and looking at completion progress. So I'm going to pop back into that previous account that we were we started in, and let's go ahead and take a look at it. We can see the survey has been assigned to specific individuals. Now there's two ways I can look at my survey completion rate. One is I can go to my menu option reports, And if I'm focusing on residents, I would go to resident reports. If I'm focusing on fellows, I would focus on fellow reports, whichever is appropriate for you. If you are doing surveys on faculty that have graduated, you can use that same process, and you would go to that faculty report section. So under the resident report section, we're going to focus on evaluation compliance, and we're going to look at completion status. So if we want to take a look at all those surveys that we've assigned, always remember the date range that you put should be inclusive of the assignment period. I assigned the evaluation from May 1 to May 31, so this end date is not inclusive, but if I change it to May 31, it is inclusive. Remember that you never need to select rotation names unless I'm focusing on a specific rotation, which I don't need to. What's important for you to remember is when you get down to step 2, you want to select the option for show archived users. That's going to focus on all the archived users that you have in your system. So depending on if you've created groups for your archived users, which you can do from the menu option users, manage group participants, that allows you to create custom groups that would allow you to run a report, or you can select all your archived users, add them, and that would then allow you to run a report on their completion. So here we're going to focus on the Alumni version 2 evaluation, and we're going to leave everything else the default it is and click OK. So this report is going to show me that in this example, Jay Abramovitz was assigned 1 evaluation, which hasn't been completed. So it gives me a very quick way of saying, hey, for the 1 person that I've assigned the survey to, it has not been completed. At least it gives you a very quick way of looking that up. Now, if you don't want this aging information on here, if we go back to our filters, I'm going to just click add all, just as an example here. Same survey, exclude no assignments. So you could exclude those people that don't have any assignments. So up here, I selected everybody, but down here I said, well, exclude anybody that doesn't have any assignments. And I can also ask it to exclude the aging details. So if I don't particularly care whether a survey was completed within 30 days or 60 days. So here's just a very quick way for me to see my completion report. 4 assigned, I can see that 4 in total have been assigned to these individuals, and all 4 of them are still pending. So once a user completes those, obviously your completion rates will vary. Now, the other place where you can very quickly look up status of evaluation completion is from the menu option Evaluations. You're going to go to Manage Evaluation Assignments. So under Assign and Manage Evaluations, we go to Manage Evaluation Assignments. Now here, instead of looking assignments up by a specific user, instead we're going to look them up by a specific evaluation. So here, look up by evaluation, we're going to select our Alumni Survey Resident V2, and that's going to bring up all the details. Now, notice here that the list by is set to summary. So this is the summary batch. If I click on detailed, it's going to show all those various assignments. And yes, all of them are listed as archived because these are your graduates. So it tells you that Jay Abramowitz, his evaluations marked as saved. Now, if you guys remember, this is the survey. I still have it up. I haven't even done anything here. All I did is I answered a couple of questions. This is a little pointer I want you guys to learn here, is whenever somebody accesses an evaluation and they start to fill it, our system will automatically save that data. So if their computer crashes or they close their browser, that information is saved. That's why the evaluation that was assigned to Jay Abramowitz is listed as saved. So this gives you a very quick way of looking at this information. Also notice, because these evaluations are not anonymous, you're also able to view the completed evaluation. So that in totality covers those 4 points that I wanted to cover with you, which was how to design questions, how to create surveys, how to distribute the surveys, and how to monitor responses. So now I want to focus on some of the data analysis and what to do with it. So in terms of looking at the actual results of those surveys, we're going to do that from the menu option reports, summary / detailed program evaluations. It's very important that you utilize this information in a summary format in order to make data decisions based on the information that you're collecting. So as you're going through and you're looking at all of these various surveys, it's important that you have a way of utilizing that information to make changes. So one of the areas is not only just generating reports, which is all great and fantastic, but in addition to creating reports, which is your summary detailed program evaluations, we want to make sure that this information is made available to your program evaluation committee as part of your APE module for graduate performance. So those go hand in hand together. So I'm going to go back to that survey that we were doing. So these questions have been answered because I want you to actually look at the results. We're going to say for program strengths was excellent mentorship, and then areas for improvement, more didactics. And preferred communication will be by email. My telephone number, sure, we'll give you our telephone number, and my mailing address I don't want to give you. I don't have any additional comments to give you. So I go to the bottom, I click finish. Now that's going to submit that survey into the system. So now let's go take a look at our reports and let's review what the program evaluation committee can do with this information. So here we were under the menu option, manage evaluation assignments. I'm going to refresh this. So why am I going to refresh it? Because I want you to see how the status of things is, will change. So now we can see the one that Jay did is marked as completed. Okay, great. Keeping in mind that we assigned this for May 1 to May 31 for purposes of generating reports. If we go to the menu option reports, on the left-hand side under resident reports, because we're in our example here, we're dealing with residents, we're going to use the summary detailed program evaluations report. Date range should be inclusive of the data we're looking at, so I'm going to change it to May 31 to be inclusive. No need to select any rotations or PGY levels. I want to focus on the alumni survey version 2. I want summary format. I can look at detailed if I want to look at each individual result one by one. That's absolutely fine. And we want all evaluators, and we want to include any comments and any other. We don't need the program director comments. And we click OK in order to generate a report. So this will give us our details. So we can see here graduation year is 2020, university physician in New York, New York. And then I can see the responses over here were fair, well prepared, very effective, well, yes. And the nice thing is if you had multiple users, there would be a statistical summary for you of how many yes, no responses that you're getting. So all of those responses are listed for you. There were no overall comments, so that's not obviously not listed here. So this is obviously one easy way for you to run reports. Again, I suggest that you run that report in a summary so that you could look at this information in summary format. You want to run the report in detailed format only because you want to find out what's Jay Abramowitz's specific current position and current city, and what his other demographic information are. So that's the main reason of why you would include one option versus the other option. We go back to menu. The second part of this was for applying the feedback. For feedback application, we're going to go to the menu option, Evaluations, in order to access our annual program evaluation module. So under the 8th module, for those of you who have not used the 8th module, I recommend that you watch the webinar on implementing the 8th module. If this is your first time accessing the APE module, you do have to select your core faculty and your core residents before you'll see any data populated in here. As I've mentioned before, the 8th module takes usually a couple minutes to load up because it's actually collecting all the data in real time for you, and then you get to this point. So it took about 45 seconds or so for that page to populate for me. Under the 8th module, if you go to the tab for program, tab for graduates. Under graduates, this is where we've provided your program evaluation committee to track year-over-year percentage of graduates who took the board exam, your board pass rate, percent of residents who are graduating, any fellowship acceptance rate, the residence acceptance rate, and the student acceptance rate. Some of these items may be optional for you. You don't have to track all of them. The other thing that you can do is actually select the surveys that you're performing in your system, and the results of those surveys are then listed in here for you so that you can actually take a look at those results. It also allows you to print a report directly from here in order to review those results. So this is a very important aspect of integrating your graduate surveys for your annual program evaluation and your PEC to review. Now, in terms of the last topic for today's agenda is on engaging your alumni in an effective manner. And the best strategy for that is to send out regular communications so that your alumni know that they're being updated and they're being engaged. It's not good if you haven't been in touch with them for years and then all of a sudden you reach out to them with just a survey. So you might want to start off with a few regular communications, wishing them well, giving them some information about what's going on with your residency program. We encourage you to organize events for networking opportunities for those graduates who you know are proximal to your institution in terms of location, and definitely do personalized outreach based on their specific interests and the feedback you get from the surveys that you're doing. Social media is a great way to connect with your alumni. It's relatively inexpensive and it's easy to do. We do encourage you to also set up an alumni portal for ongoing engagement of your alumni and offer them some exclusive benefits and opportunities to actually become active alumni. For example, offer them opportunities to be involved in mentorship programs in exchange for specific honorary positions within the program in order to get them engaged. I know some programs are offering financial incentives also for alumni to come on as mentors for their trainees. We're generally in the range of about $500 to $1,000 for being involved as a mentor for trainees. So that's also an option. So this in total covers everything in terms of building alumni survey, assigning the alumni survey, reviewing the data, and integrating the data with the annual program evaluation process. Thank you for your participation. Any questions? Your microphones are unmuted in case you have any questions you want to ask verbally. I don't see any written questions.